Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Journey Podcast. I'm Morgan DeBaun, your host, and I'm really excited today because I'm here with my friend Madia Willis. She is an incredible entrepreneur from the Black Paper Party, and I met her, I guess, maybe a year ago. I randomly, I think, DM'd you on LinkedIn. Blavity
Yeah.
has so random. I feel like that's a theme of this show. I feel like every other episode, I'm like, I randomly linked in this person and said, hey, can I talk to you? But Blavity, a couple of years ago, as the media industry has been changing and traffic sources from Facebook have declined, our traffic as a media portfolio and pretty much every media company that's ever existed went down. And so as a part of that, we said, okay, well, if we're going to have less people on our site that are more engaged, less random, more direct audience, how do we help increase our revenue per page view or revenue per customer outside of just display advertising? So when you go to a website, you see the little banner ads, that's display advertising. At one point, that was like the majority of where our revenue in the media business was coming from. And as the world has shifted, we needed to diversify those sources of traffic and then also diversify our revenue streams. So part of the things that we were testing a couple of years ago was commerce and affiliates. And certain brands, like media brands, do really well with an affiliate business. Like BuzzFeed has an incredible affiliate business with Tasty. The Skim has an incredible affiliate business because in their newsletters, if you open a newsletter from the Skim, you're going to see like all these product recommendations. They're taking, 10 cents, 20 cents, or some sort of cost per click or cost per conversion in the back end deal for whatever product they're recommending. So we didn't have that set up, and there was no one who had that set up in the Black multicultural space. Like all of our Black competitors, they don't do commerce. And so one of my hypotheses was particularly with brands like Home and Texture, which is our interior design brand, or 2190, which is for women, that like, okay, we should be able to drive people's purchasing decisions. And so as a part of that, of course, I was like, okay, well, how do we help Black businesses first? Like if I'm going to start selling products, like I need them to be Black. Now, there's an infinite amount of products in the universe. So it's not realistic for every single product for us to post to be Black, but I wanted our team to have a difference to Black small businesses that were in the commerce realm. And that is the long-winded story on how I got to you. Hey, everyone. I'm Morgan DeBaun, a passionate entrepreneur and life advisor. With the Journey podcast, you'll discover that success isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who've taken control of their lives. Join me on my own journey to discover the secret sauce behind reaching success with permission from no one else. Okay, so for those people who aren't familiar, like what is your business? What do you guys sell? And let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty there.
Yes. So the business is Black Paper Party. We are almost 4 years old. We'll be 4 in September. And we design, manufacture, and license seasonal products that feature and center Black families and Black characters. So that can be anything from wrapping paper, gift bags, ornaments, but also things like family pajamas, decor, tabletop, even candles, even cookies. So yeah, inclusive seasonal products is what we do.
It's so cool. She's being very humble. How many stores are you in?
We are in 6 retailers currently, and that's Walmart, Target, Family Dollar, Dollar General, Macy's, CVS. So in like 2 years. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing and humbling.
That's an incredible amount of retailers. And that's over 10,000 stores.
Yeah, climbing to 14,000.
She's being super humble, you guys. And that just drives me nuts because here's my thing. It is a feat to get into one retailer, 6 retailers at those different product prices, a Family General Dollar versus a Target versus a Walmart, like very different type of buyer, very different type of SKU offering. And so it is a really complicated situation. And I remember on our call when we were first talking, like I was hearing you explain and hearing your team explain how far in advance you have to be pitching seasonal products to these retailers. And I was like, this is insane. So walk us through how, like, if you have an idea for a like cute Black girl wrapping paper for the holidays, what does that process look like?
Yeah. So I always like to say like we were behind from the time we first launched because for a retailer like Walmart, they're working actually 12 to 15 months out. So we are about to have our 2025 Christmas meetings. So That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the process really, it's interesting because the product part of it doesn't come until later. So we like are really like a trend-based business. So we first start with trend. So that includes like going out and competitive shopping, seeing what's out there in the market, and then using some kind of trend resources. WGSN is one of them. And we kind of put together like, oh, what's hot, what's going to be trending, and then how do we put that through a Black lens, so make it Black. I'll give you an example, like the soft life is kind of trending, right? Like we just like the soft life, that's fine. So we have a whole rich auntie vibes trend, but kind of what does that mean for colors, right? It means that they're kind of muted. We know that our customer, she really loves traditional red and green, right? But it's like, okay, can we throw a sage in there? Can we have a burgundy instead of a red? So things like that, right? So we generally will have like 3 to 5 trends for an entire season, and that will basically like lay out like what we're going to design. And then the illustrator, my partner Jay, or whoever we might be working with at the time for the particular trend, creates the characters. And then that gets handed off to textile, which is the print and pattern designers, and they put those characters and icons like maybe bells or bows into prints. And that's kind of like how the process works. Then we'll have a guide, which includes characters and includes those prints. And that gets handed off to our licensees, or it comes back to us to say, okay, we want to manufacture, wrapping paper, or maybe it's ornaments, right? And then there's the whole product development process. And that's where it's like, okay, now we'll take this, put this on that product. Walmart will say, oh, we like this trend. Target will say, we like this trend. And they don't like to overlap trends either. So it's great that we have like such diverse designs, right? So Macy's will be like, I like this trend. Target will be like, I like this one. Walmart would choose, since Walmart works the furthest out, but they're conservative, right? So we know Walmart's not choosing the same trend that Target is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much how it goes. So the licensees will design stuff, we'll design stuff, we'll have our meetings with the various buyers who, like you said, very different temperaments and processes. And then we'll kind of get an idea of what's going to be in stores, whether manufactured or licensed by us, like, and how to kind of distinguish, like you said, like the price points, right? And yeah, then it's just kind of approvals from there, lots of approvals, 3 rounds. You got to get the hair texture right, the skin color right. Things look a mess, like, and the care that you have for your product is not what a factory or a licensee might have. So yeah, that pretty much takes a year to get from, the trend all the way to like product shipping now.
Wow.
And that's where we are. Our product is shipping now. So it's July, right? To be in the stores by October 31st.
Wow. Okay, so let's start back at the beginning on trends and picking the right 3 to 5. Do you start with actually
Yeah.
3 to 5, or how wide do you go? What is your brainstorming process? Because I think like
Yeah.
there's a lot of nitty-gritty that you just said in the back end, which we'll get into, but I actually think the beginning is the part that's really interesting to me because you're basically kind of placing bets
Yes.
like really far out.
Absolutely. So now we've gotten better at saying, right, like we need to have a traditional trend. We need to have we call it our like fashion forward trend. And maybe there'll be subcategories underneath, right? But it's just kind of, we talk about everything, like what's going on in pop culture. We go to Art Basel, look at, contemporary art, like metallics, for example, like were really big 2 years ago when we went and we were like, okay, we got to have like a silvery kind of like icy iridescent, sort of trend.
Mm.
Or like rose gold, for example, right? That champagne kind of rose gold color. You see it everywhere, like hair, jewelry, clothing, interiors, right? So, like that blush, so gold, right? You still got to have a gold for Christmas, but it's going to be a little bit more red and a little bit pinker. So that's kind of like how we think about them. And then we kind of distill them down. So, for example, this Christmas, you'll see the Claus family in the city. And so our Claus family is like kind of like what people kind of know us by, right? Our Papa and Nana Claus, their kids, Aunt Holly, who's like the single rich auntie, right? So we had like trends where they were kind of in wintry or snowy, situations, right? And then we're like, okay, like they're going to be in the city. So they're shopping in the city, they're in cars, like, and you see the brownstones, the gingerbread brownstones that people kind of recognize. So kind of, it's storytelling. It's a little bit of like what's going to be popular. And I have that background because I did do trend for Five Below, and then also for Walmart, where I did product development and trend for many years. So it's kind of an art and a science. And yeah, we have a meeting where it's like the trend brainstorm meeting, and everyone brings chairs and pictures from what they've seen. We go to a lot of trade shows. There's a show in Germany. We don't go. It's called Christmas World, but we get pictures, and it's like little vignettes about different, Christmas scenes. Another example, mushrooms, right? Mushrooms are everywhere, interiors in kind of the 70s trend that was really big 2 years ago, kind of trickling down into home. So we had a whole like soul Christmas situation. And this year we took that mushroom and it's kind of like a botanical Christmas type of trend. So we're doing the most. And people actually don't want all of that. They literally just want red and green and Papa Claus, but we try to push our customers a little bit. And some people get it. Like we have to kind of bring them along and kind of adjust our sales projections accordingly. But it's really fun.
I think that what some of the things that you just said was really interesting. Like you're going to cultural moments, like going to Art Basel. I think that when, at least for me as a consumer who's picking up, paper products for my nephew, I'm not necessarily thinking like, wow, this is coming from someone's insight from Art Basel last year. It's really giving Devil Wears Prada, where she's like, you think you're unique wearing that blue. That's actually the Serenian blue 3 seasons ago. And I'm like, oh, you're giving Devil Wears Prada, but for like all paper goods.
Thank you. That was chosen for you. Like that's the best part of the movie.
It's the best line in the entire movie. You kept mentioning licensees, and I don't really understand what that means. Walk me through what a licensee, when you're saying a licensee, what that means. Is there a middleman between you and the retailers that's like also selling your designs?
Yeah, kind of. You can call it a middleman, but they're like the manufacturer, right? So, for example, at Macy's, we're the vendor of record and we manufacture the products. We design it, we ship it, we get it there. For us, the licensees, they design it with our input, right, or our approval. They ship it. They're the vendor of record, and we make a royalty off of the sales that they make. So we really looked at licensing as a way to expand our awareness and the breadth and depth of the products that we were able to get out there on the market. And so it's not really a traditional way of like using licensing, but from my past life working in retail, right, I was in charge of licensed product. And I was like, this is actually, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, I don't know how many Black businesses or Black people know about like how in depth it is, but I can have an idea, right? I can have my IP and my art and I can hand it over to someone and they can sell it and I do nothing but approvals and I make money. And so that was a way where like there's no way we'd be able to afford the MOQs, the minimum order quantities necessary to test and try ideas, right? But if I have a licensee who can go out and take our guide and make family pajamas, right? Like how can we afford as a startup, to buy that many sizes for a family, right? So that really was a strategy from the very beginning for us to be able to be a licensor and expand the brand awareness that way. And it's been working. I mean, there's only 2 brands out here doing that, us and Afro Unicorn. And we've been nominated for 4 licensing awards.
Wow.
Because it really is kind of a unique thing in our art. It's beautiful.
That's very cool. So I don't know if you know this, but I dabble in art on the side. That's my hobby.
Oh.
Yes, I did this painting back here,
Amazing.
but I also painted
I paint
watercolors.
too.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, like I don't have time, obviously, for another business. I got 11 businesses. I don't need another one. Lord
Right.
Jesus, please no. However, how would an artist walk through getting their artwork in front of someone who would be able to like pay them a royalty?
Yeah. So there's actually someone who I met. His name is Norman Wyatt. So he is a fine artist and he actually like did a lot of that art that you see kind of on, Wayfair and kind of overstock the like stand, in hotels.
Yeah.
That standard kind of like abstract, art, right? And he and I were having a conversation because he just actually launched a whole licensed home line, furniture,
Wow.
lighting, wall art, pottery, I mean, everything, right? With a licensee. So,
Hmm.
and they are a huge, supplier to a lot of retailers and also the online platforms. And they kind of took his ideas, right, and made this line, and he'll make a royalty off of everything that is sold.
Wow.
But for many years, he worked with art licensing companies, actually, and that's how he got into that space. But the companies that he listed, that's specifically what they do, right? They manufacture canvases,
Mm,
prints, sometimes stationery, but literally just fine art prints. A lot of artists are using it now for print on demand. So it's a
right.
company like that. And then, yeah, you license your artwork. They sell it to Wayfair or whoever, Urban. And yeah, you get a check. So it's as simple as that. But it's really about licensing with a company that believes in your work and believes
Mhm.
in your aesthetic and also has the connections, right, to get it sold and has the desire and the
Right.
drive.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a disconnect.
What are some challenges that you all have had to actively manage with such a seasonal business?
Cash flow is the biggest one. So if you can imagine, we spend money in Q1 and Q2, and then we make money in Q3, but mostly Q4. So you
Mhm.
can imagine, right? Like some of these questions for grants or for loans or whatever it is, funding, right? They're like, well, what was your monthly revenue the past 12 months? And it's like, no, you have to consider us like for a full year. Like it's not,
Yes.
zero, 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 negative, 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 and
Right.
so that's been the biggest challenge, definitely. But so licensing now has helped counteract that, right? So
Mhm.
we had a Black History Month program that set, right after Christmas, at Kohl's and at Dollar General last year. We had a Easter program and a Valentine's Day program, like, at Walmart.
Mhm.
So we're starting to like get checks quarterly,
That's nice.
like as we have more products year round. So that's kind of the way we've tried to counteract that. But I think it's really about just getting more Christmas business, just more retailers, more because all retailers make most of their money in Q4 anyway.
Sure.
They make
Yeah.
40% of their sales come from Christmas. And so that's still our strategy. It's just bigger and more, I think,
Yeah.
like saturation.
How does that work though? So, like, is that selling more SKUs? Is that I mean, you're already in the biggest retailers. Is it
Yeah.
like adding more?
Yeah.
Yeah, what does that look like?
It's adding more programs, definitely adding the retailers that we don't have, and expanding kind of like the categories that we're in. So if it's like just wrap and paper right somewhere, then it's like, okay, can we get a door sign? Can we get the candle program? Can we, have baked goods or, how to kind of make the brand kind of synonymous with Christmas and like kind of in every kind of facet of your life. We really wanted to do a kitchen program, right? Where it's like tea
Mhm.
towels and aprons and things like
Cute.
that, right? Or bath, right? Where it's like the Papa Claus, rug and the curtain, So it's really just kind of one, we have to make sure our programs sell
Mhm.
while they're in the store and then try to convince the other buyers, to get on board. And that's difficult to do by yourself
Oh,
as a business.
absolutely. Absolutely. And what kind of marketing do you all do to make the brand equity? Like, I'd imagine if I were you, I would spend a lot of time focusing on building the brand of the characters and the brand recognition of some of these, your most familiar patterns.
Yeah.
How do you approach brand marketing for those things?
Well, it's interesting that you asked. So the story kind of came after.
Mhm.
We were just like, oh, this is cute, and marketing is expensive. So our initial strategy was just to drive sales to the website. And it's only like now where we kind of have more to play with, where it's like, okay, let's build awareness of the programs at retail or let's build awareness of this particular trend, right? So it's never really been like, let's build awareness of the brand because we've just never had that discretionary income. Or like to your point, we literally just got all of the clearances for like Aunt Holly and, Papa Claus and our Claus babies, right? So now we can actually tell the story like of Aunt Holly, in our Rich Auntie Vibes collection, for example. So it's been baby steps with the marketing, but really getting there to tell the robust story.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine like cute little books and, like things that are in the hands of the kids. And I mean, it's really family. It's really what you're going after, like partnering with
Yes.
influencers, partnering with family
Yep.
influencers on YouTube and TikTok. And
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
I think that your brand could be so big from a storytelling perspective. And I know I've talked to
Thank
you
you.
about this offline,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's really important. I'm curious, so you came to CO Spring Break. We spent a few days together in
Yeah.
Costa Rica, which is my annual retreat for those of you who weren't familiar. And what changes have you made since that retreat?
Well, in terms of the storytelling, which we did, speak about, we have some books in the works actually, and building the content is a huge priority. So we're kind of speaking with just kind of high level strategy partners to really help us kind of develop that character strategy and the licensing strategy in terms of animation, film, shorts, and then the books to really kind of try to build that strategy. So that's been the main thing. The second thing is really trying to secure those like special licenses to potentially do the brand shop, which would be huge and like doesn't exist. So kind of
Mhm.
thinking about that as a
What does that mean
model
when you say
as
licenses
well.
for brand shop?
So like people want us to make wrapping paper for them. And it's like happened enough times now that like it's just a potential like other business.
Yeah,
And that's everything from museums to I don't know, like who do we have a call with? A ton of musicians,
yeah,
kids properties, right? Like
yeah,
people are literally like, can you make wrapping paper for us, like with our properties, with
yes,
their IP? And so
right.
that's just something that we're trying to figure out the format of, right? So yeah, in the works, I would
I
say.
think that's huge.
CEO of Spring Break really got like the wheels turning
Mhm.
and really kind of trying to like strategically kind of implement some of this stuff.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of brands that have good brands, but don't have monetization outside of their ad revenue if they've got a big YouTube channel or brand partnership revenue if they are big TikTokers or YouTubers. And I think there's actually way more people that could have a product based business, but also don't want to have the
Mhm.
responsibility of like running the product based business. They want to just
Yes.
give you their stuff and say, hey, great, pay me the royalty, pay me, the rev cut, and you can take the majority because it's just an upside for them,
Yep.
frankly.
Yep. It's a great idea.
Tell me what your team is like right now. I mean, I'd imagine how much do you have to scale up and scale down during Q3, Q4?
Well, we'll scale up in Q4.
Okay.
We'll bring on an entire like marketing operation in Q3. So that's like probably a team of 5 or 6. And then we bring on customer service. I mean, now our fulfillment center is extremely engaged. So that's like our third party logistics. Will
Mhm.
work very closely with me right now to ship our Macy's and Target stuff. So yeah, the scale up right now we're a little bit in the calm. It's not calm, like we just have to make sure everything ships from the factory and that like is not really labor intensive. But then when in 45 days when it arrives, it's going to be like super intense. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're not really scaled up right now, but we're about to hire a new design manager, which is great because that'll be
Mm.
something we can delegate and they'll handle the trend that I love so much, the trend in managing the designers. So that'll be awesome. But
Very
that's about
cool.
it. We're still lean and mean.
Yeah, that is pretty lean, but it makes sense. I think same thing with like Afrotech. We have a seasonal business in that way where like we staff up a lot in Q3,
Mm.
Q4. And then in Q1, I'm like, what are these people doing again? And so that's how we used to operate. And now it's like, all right, cool. We've got a good format. But it is hard to like get that balance of like, how early do you need to bring people on? What's the offboarding
Yep.
process, and making sure people have good life balance or people know what they're getting themselves into. If you're like, look, in Q4, like we run so hard, and then we take a break. Have you all implemented
Yep.
like breaks or vacations for your team? How do you guys split up responsibilities amongst your founders?
Yeah. So now there's just 2 out of the 3 of us working in the business every day. So my partner, for example, now is in Peru. So she's still
Okay.
working, right? So we're
Yeah.
pretty flexible in terms of like where you can work from. We split up responsibilities. It's pretty much according to like our skills. So I'm pretty much sourcing and product development and design until the new person comes on. Jasmine is pretty much like financials, POs, and she also handles the marketing. So
Mhm.
she's getting ready to onboard the marketing team and work with our publicist. So it's pretty like evenly split. Some things like, I don't know, a good example, item setup, like we may have to work with each other on, because like I know the like dimensions or the like descriptions of things, and meanwhile she's like, here's the cost, whatever. So it's pretty evenly split amongst our skill sets.
That's
Yeah.
great. And for those people who are listening in or watching the show who have business partners and are trying to figure out how they establish those types of roles, what advice would you give them?
Oh,
I know it's not easy.
hmm. It is not easy because you wear so many hats. And so I would say just like what's more important is to just have a clear split of responsibilities. And then if there's like a decision maker, right, you still can get the opinion, but then the person who's in charge like of that area like makes the decision.
Hmm.
Because the worst thing is redundancy. Like there's no like role clarity, and so you're spending time like working on the same thing. You can't afford that really.
Right.
So yeah, my biggest piece of advice, I mean, we've done all the things. I mean, we created our SOPs. I mean, we've hired consultants to like create the role clarity and the job descriptions and all of that stuff. We have had to work on like staying in your lane.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, you want to have a say in everything. And then there's other things where we just make decisions together, right? And then we'll do that, in a meeting. But certain things like major decisions like, who's your licensing agency going to be? Or do we want to work with this retailer in general? Or,
Right.
like yay or nay on this character? Those
Right.
are things. There's just three of us, right? So majority rules
Roles.
in some
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah.
It's been hard.
It
So,
is hard. I had 4 co-founders, Blavity
wow.
was me, Jonathan Jackson, Jeff Nelson, and Aaron Samuels. We've been in business for 10 years. And I think when you first start a company, or really you start a project that turns into a startup, that turns into an operation, which turns into a business, which turns into a company. It's not just like a immediate company, and
Great way to say that.
there's different people in my experience that want different things along the way. So like in the beginning, you are not thinking about, am I going to be the best person to run a 200 person company and like manage a P&L and all these things? You're
Yeah.
not there. And I think a lot of times when I talk to other entrepreneurs who have co-founders, sometimes I have to just say like, it's okay for everybody not to want to be doing this for the rest of their life. Like it's okay for
Yeah.
people's roles to shift and adjust. And you got to work through that. It's a bit of a breakup in some ways. It can be really painful and really hard because your identity is tied up into it. And, like even Aaron, my co founder, he has an incredible fund, but he was like, I want to be a VC. I was like, hell no, we got shit to do. Like, absolutely not. And then I was like, all right, cool. Like, if that's what you want to do, fine. Like, obviously, I'm going to support you, like one of my very, very good friends. But like, my initial reaction was like, no, we are doing a thing.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is just like that constant negotiation and checking in. And so we used to check in every 3 to 6 months, like, yo, you will always be a co founder, but do you still want to be the operator?
Yeah. How many of you are still working in the business?
2.
Wow.
Yeah. So for over 3 years now, it's just been me and Jeff. And then I
Wow.
hired professional executives. I hired a professional chief revenue officer. I hired a professional, CFO, which
Yeah.
has been so helpful for me having a little bit more balance because I didn't have to wear as many hats now that, it's not like people who started something 10 years ago, just like making it work. It's like actually people
Yeah.
who've done this for 20 years, the one
Yeah.
specific role, like a chief revenue officer. But yeah, it is a really hard transition. And so for anyone who's listening to this who has co-founders and you're like, this shit is hard. It is. It's really hard. There was a time when I feel like my co-founders were like, I was like more in a relationship with my co-founders than I was than with like romantic relationships in my life, especially in my 20s.
Absolutely. So much time together.
So much
much time. And then when everyone's time is different, right? And how you all are spending the time. And if the baby is the business, right? Like then just that constant checking in, it's so necessary. But then also, like you said, the constant negotiation, like, is this what you still want? What are you supposed to be doing? What is the commitment? Like, and is that okay? Like, and if it's not, then like, how does that work? I didn't know when I started the business that I would also be literally like negotiating the people that you work with every day. And so
Absolutely.
that's a huge learning.
It's hard.
It's intense. Yeah.
It's very intense. And I think it's just a constant evolution. At least for me, it's just required me to
hmm
continually reinvest in myself to say, like, all right, at this next level, how can I be the best CEO, co-founder, executive, visionary that I can be? And then constantly checking in with even like now we have a board and I'll say like I remember a couple years ago I
Yes.
renegotiated my own salary with myself. Right. It's like,
Nice.
okay, if I were to leave tomorrow and just be a founder and chairperson of the board, how much would it cost to replace me as CEO doing all the things that I do?
Mm.
It ain't cheap. I
No,
would
I'm
be
sure
very
it isn't.
expensive in the market, you know? So I had to have that conversation with myself of like, if I quit, I'm not quitting. People don't start running around talking about I'm working about to leave. I'm not leaving. But like I had to have that conversation with myself of if I were to quit and just be available and take a normal 9 to 5 with what I know, how much would I make working at
Mm.
Facebook, Google, or any place in the world that I
Mhm.
wanted to work?
Mhm.
There was a huge disconnect, right? And I think then negotiating those conversations with your co-founders, you got to do the same thing for them. It's like, okay, if Jeff were to go work somewhere else, wow, like what a valuable asset somewhere else. And I think sometimes as co-founders, we can undervalue ourselves because we've been in the weeds for so long that we can't see how much new expertise, like
Absolutely.
if you went to Hallmark, how much would Hallmark like you could be the CEO? Like, you know, how much are you worth in the marketplace now knowing what you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something also the board, right? So we have an advisory board. It's not
Yeah.
a, board
Yeah.
of governors or board of directors. But that was just something a huge like it's like a burden that was kind of lifted just like people to help you make decisions, right? And manage the hard stuff
Mhm.
that, was a huge help. And then we also have a business therapist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we see it was, I think, once a month, and we just like check in, and she helps us check in, and that has also helped us.
That's very cool. How did you go about putting together your board of advisors?
We all brought our choices to the table, and then it had to be a unanimous vote. And then
Ooh.
it had to be an odd number of people so that we can never have a tie. Yeah, so that's kind of because I'm half of the business and my partners are together, they're half of the business.
Right.
So yeah, they're also people who are experts in the fields that we want to get into as well. So we have a one person like who's a licensing like OG. She literally just got like a licensing Hall of Fame award. Cindy Levitt. We've got general merchandise, grew up in the ranks of retail, like now executive. We've got one guy, John Munson, is a supplier diversity expert.
Hmm.
We've got Saxton Moore, who's an amazing just animation and film executive.
Love that.
Oh, and then Twyla Brooks, who wasn't, an officer at Walmart and now, is amazing entrepreneur and also like is the president of what is that? HGTV couple who has a home line now, but she is their president.
Very
So
cool.
just like amazing people in the industry that can help guide us. Because to your point, we just started a project on Zazzle, like literally never thought that it was going to grow into this business at all.
Not Zazzle.
Yeah, exact print on demand wrapping paper
That's
in
crazy.
2019.
Yeah.
And people loved it. And then we were like, oh, wait, maybe this is a business idea.
I mean, I think you were one of the few Black businesses that took advantage of the kind of uprising in retailers and brands making a
Yeah.
commitment to Black
Yep.
owned businesses that made it through. Because now I talk to so many entrepreneurs who are calling me like, hey, I got to sell my business. I'm like, why? And they're like, yo,
Yes.
because my
Yes.
revenue's dipped. I'm like, you can't sell your business when your revenue dipped. Like, that's like what people don't want to buy. So let's
Well,
reconsider that.
probably not what they wanted to hear.
I know.
but,
I know.
but
But that's why
yes.
people call me.
Yeah. Yeah, because all that has dried up. It's all dried up. The marketing has dried up. The support
Gone.
has dried up. And so now you're only standing on the quality of your product and if there's actually a market.
Which
So,
is how business is supposed to run, to be fair. Like,
exactly. True.
I think
That's
that
true.
our community should take every opportunity that's given to us. If somebody wants to say Black is in vogue and give us $1 million, you take it, but you do not rely on it. I think that's where I think a lot of
Exactly.
people go wrong is they're like, "Oh, this is popping, like, I should do this. I should be a full-time entrepreneur. I have all this opportunity." And it's like, yeah, take the opportunity and then reinvest it into real product offerings and real revenue
Yep.
instead of
Yep.
just assuming this is always gonna be a handout. It's not.
Yeah. But, it also means like some people who picked up your phone call, like they don't pick it up anymore.
No.
Some people who were like, yeah, this is great, right? They're like, I don't really know. A lot of Black brands might hover at that like 70% sell through, right? Where most retailers are like a 90% sell through. And if there's a disconnect, like they don't rebuy the program. And
Yeah.
where there might have been some leniency in the past, like now it's like, oh, it
God.
didn't sell. And it's like, well, how would it sell if there's no marketing invested, right?
Yeah.
From the retailer, or, nobody knows it's there because you've put it,
In the
who
back, on the
God knows
bottom.
where, right? In the back. And we've
Yeah.
had customers like go and pick our stuff out of, like, literally we've had boxes of product disappear at Walmart in the South.
Crazy.
Like, people are offended by the name and like will do something about it at the
Yeah.
store.
Or
And
like a
so,
customer will move it.
oh yeah, customers, people who work there, I'm sure, like we just have stuff that disappears. It just never gets on the floor, or it's hidden underneath something because someone doesn't want it like up front. So there's a lot of challenges that you're facing just once you're even in the retailer. So
Yeah.
it's tough. So we're just doing everything that we can to try to continue to make great product. We're learning things about the retailers that we're in. Like, for example, like our
Absolutely.
customer, she shops at Macy's. You know
She
what I
does.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
she may go to Walmart to like go try to find our product because she knows it's there. But like our customer, she's just there. It's our product sold amazingly. So some things, TJ Maxx, for example, she hates
Love.
digging for our product in TJ Maxx. It may not be in their store. Like, it frustrated people. It didn't sell well there. So
Yeah.
the learnings, right, to help know like who are the really good partners for you to be in, and
Yeah.
dig deep with them to try to grow, like that's really important. So we're kind of in that nuanced phase now to try to stay in.
I love that. Yeah, I think that one thing that people will notice if you guys are being like inquisitive shoppers, you'll see that many, many Black brands are being dropped at Sephora, Ulta, Target, Walmart. And
Mhm.
it's because of exactly what you were sharing in terms of like their sell through rate is not high at
Yep.
all. And they had a
Yep.
leniency of a 2 to 3 year window to get it up, and they didn't. And
Yep.
it's very expensive actually to be an underselling product in retail. It's actually not usually that good for the small business, anyways, because of the margins. And then from a retailer perspective, they're just consolidating. They're like, great, like you're the one golden egg that's selling above the 90%. Great. You get all of the shelf space now, right?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that's
Decrease
happening.
in SKU.
Decrease in right. So that's happening. And I think at one point we all became champion of like, oh my God, like look at me, I'm in Target. And you saw all the reels of like the Black girl, I'm in Target, I'm in Ulta, I'm in Sephora.
Yep.
And then, I'm like, be careful, y'all. Be careful.
Yep.
Be careful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's tough.
It's
It is
really tough.
tough.
Any last advice that you would share to someone who is in this business that is trying to build out paper goods, a seasonal business that has product offerings, that wants to go the retail route or even the direct to consumer route?
My biggest piece of advice is do your research. Like, is there a market for your product? What would you do if you got an order for 100 pieces, for 1,000 pieces, for 50,000 pieces, right? Do you have a plan? How could you do it, right? And then it's, not everything that glitters is gold. So to your point, right, the difference between one retailer wanting to work with you and another retailer wanting to work with you, right? Like, what are the resources that they have for onboarding?
Mm,
Just, is it simple to do business with them, or is it difficult? Like, are you have no resources, nowhere to go to ask for help, like constant chargebacks, right? With no support. Are they willing to subsidize your marketing activities, right? So you can actually tell people that your program is there.
mm,
What's it like working with the buyers? Do they return your emails? Like, if they don't, you probably shouldn't work with the retailer. And that's kind of like the main advice, it's just like choose wisely with how you engage in the retailers. Really do your research to make sure that there's a market for your product. And I'm actually about to launch a course and a platform to help
Great.
people like with resources to help them like kind of navigate the retail landscape and the competitive shopping landscape, because it's tough. You might just have a passion, you might just have a hobby
Yes.
that you love and you feel like I got to get it into retail or I got to scale this up. And it's like,
Maybe not.
no one's going to buy it. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do you evolve and do your research? And, just because it's a passion doesn't mean it should be a product on the shelves. And
Yeah.
that's really difficult for people to kind of swallow. But yeah, that's my advice.
I love it. It's okay to just have an Etsy shop and that does $5,000 a month.
Literally, it's
Like,
fine.
that's fine. Like, it's fine. I think that's like, sometimes I'm like, you guys, it's just like, just let it be. Like, why is everything got to be a big thing? Just let it be. Like, it's cool.
Yes. It's cool. It is fun. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, how can people get in contact with you? Where can they find out about your course that you're launching soon?
It will be Madia Willis Art and Designs, revamping, and I'll announce it on my LinkedIn and on my socials. But you can find out about Black Paper Party at blackpaperparty.com. We're Black Paper Party on all socials. And you can also find us on LinkedIn. And I'm Madia Willis. And you can also find me on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing. Madia, thank you for joining the Journey podcast today and sharing all of the tea about the behind the scenes of your business. And thank you for also being an amazing Work Smarter.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I love everything that you're doing, and you're definitely an inspiration. So anytime, thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Journey podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review and head to our Instagram and YouTube to leave a comment. I look forward to hearing how this podcast has made an impact on your own journey.